I'm ready.
All right, so we're actually using our good friends at the Mary Sue because they had a
Mm.
decent breakdown of upcoming DC properties. But
Yeah,
before we get out of the way, can I just say that DC DOA seems to be some sort of meme that people are trying to bring into reality?
yeah,
Uh, After James Gunn's announcements about the upcoming projects that he's spearheading. Um, and I've seen so many things where, like, at first, like, okay, if you don't like the sounds of this, DC being DOA makes enough sense. But I saw a video where it's like the good DC announcements, the good, the bad, and the DOA. It's like, okay,
yeah,
people are trying to meme this connection into existence.
yeah. And I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna work.
No. Now, I don't know that this direction is going to work, but
Yeah.
yeah. But we try to be fair. Let's
Mhm.
go. Uh, Even the DCU's new Dream Team is towing the misogynist line about Batgirl's cancellation. Oh, that was awful. Yeah, like what do you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. It was a
The
terrible
the
movie. Get over it.
the downside of going to the Mary Sue. But
Yes.
anyway, so we're going to ignore anything that isn't that wasn't part of that announcement.
Mhm.
So he mentioned. So one thing that people have been making hay out of is him saying that Ezra Miller could still be the Flash. Uh, or go see this movie; it's amazing. Well, as far as go see this movie, it's amazing. Of course, you want people to go see Shazam, Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman.
Yeah.
You're just because you're dumping your old stock on the market doesn't mean that you want people to not go see it just because it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. If nothing else, it gives you some more money to play with.
Yep. I think that the Flash, like him saying good things about Ezra Miller, James Gunn saying good things about Ezra Miller, is a bit like when Donald Trump went to North Korea and was saying good things about Kim Jong Un because he was in the middle of negotiations with him.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like, duh, you if if I'm trying to convince Daniel to, oh, I don't know, give me a free one of those boxes from his books. Am I going to go out there and say that Daniel's an awful person? No, of course not.
Yeah.
By the same token, if I'm trying to convince people to maybe spend $20 to go to the theater to see on their ticket and popcorn to watch Ezra Miller be three different flashes,
Yeah.
I want to try to plant the idea that it's going to be a good time and he's good at his job.
Yeah, exactly. And if nothing else, you might be able to see Michael Keaton, Batman again.
Yes. So I I have no interest in seeing the Flash still, but I
No.
understand the razzle dazzle.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Blue Beetle is of them the one I'm the most likely to want to see.
Yeah, same here. I'm interested in. Yeah, I'm mildly curious about it, mildly interested in it. Yeah, it's
It has a good chance of being different.
yeah, and it's Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle, so
Yep.
that should be interesting.
Yeah, he has one of the more strong concepts of a recent comic book character.
Hmm.
And we got Aquaman with Amber Heard, so
No,
no.
skipping that one.
I was probably going to skip it anyway.
Yeah.
Pa, pa, pa. Going past a few other things. So we hit the first. So the first
Okay.
thing he actually mentioned before he got into Superman concept was Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
Daniel, as a lifelong nerd, had
Mhm.
you ever heard of the Creature Commandos until they were announced for this upcoming TV show or animated show for HBO Max?
No, I had never heard of him before.
Good, because me neither. It's like DC is littered with these oddball concepts like this
Yeah.
that nobody knows about because everybody just focuses on Batman and Superman.
Oh, and good. We're not the only ones. Ninja Toe had never heard of him either.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mhm.
This feels like something that is pure James Gunn going, what's the most James Gunn thing I can get James Gunn my way into the DC universe?
Yeah.
Because he loves little oddball things.
Yeah.
Now, if we scroll back up here to Superman Legacy, which is his Superman movie that he's penning, and man, that's a rushed development cycle.
Yeah, I think I don't think they're going to make that release date.
It depends on how ambitious it is,
Mhm.
because if it's modestly budgeted, which could actually be like the saving grace of these movies, if you try to shove a $200 million budget into some of these, you're stupid,
Yeah,
just flat out stupid.
yeah.
Right. The DCU depends on Superman Legacy. They have to get this right. But the
Hmm.
thing I'll say is that um, he said, "quote Superman is kind in a world that thinks that kindness was it outdated or old fashioned?"
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That sounds like he actually gets Superman.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm somewhat optimistic for this movie because of that, and I of course I don't know who they're going to line up for a villain for this movie. I mean, I don't know
Right.
if they're going to do Lex Luthor or if they're going to maybe do hopefully it's not like a Man of Steel where you have this like global catastrophe that could happen.
Yes.
Like just keep it smaller.
He talks about how he's struggling with his human and Kryptonian legacy, hence the title.
Hmm.
If I had to wager, my money's on Brainiac.
Ooh,
Because that'd
yeah.
be a good villain to bring in. For it's a villain that everybody keeps saying, why haven't we had a Brainiac movie yet? Why do we have Zod and Lex Luthor again? Bring us Brainiac.
Yeah, I'd like to see Brainiac in a movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Brainiac would get me excited,
yeah.
and it would play into the whole Krypton legacy thing without it being another Dragon Ball Z fight like a Man of Steel.
Man of Steel. Oh yeah. Oof.
So Gunn may write and direct the film, though he has yet to formally commit.
Okay.
So he might just end up writing it, which might not be the worst thing.
Yeah.
We are getting a Amanda Waller TV show. Uh,
I
to
don't
go with
care.
a season 2 of Peacemaker.
I have no interest in this show at all. I don't. I Giving Amanda Waller a TV show that's doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No.
She's not a leading character. She's kind of a she's her whole shtick is that she works in the shadows in the background. Like
Yes.
she's not a headlining character.
And in my opinion, so I think I've mentioned before that one thing that gives me pause is that I have not finished a James Gunn DC universe joint that I have not finished one.
Hmm.
I watched 2 episodes of Peacemaker and half of the Suicide Squad and noped out. Part of
Right.
what I didn't like about it, I hated the way he wrote Amanda Waller's support team as just a bunch of assholes.
Oh.
Like there were no interesting characters in that bunch.
Uh,
Now, the one girl from or the one woman from Peacemaker who becomes his friend could be good in theory, but I don't know that she's in this, and I just don't care. It's
yeah.
just
Mm,
it's like the Marvel version of the MCU version of Nick Fury is not a main character. Neither is Waller.
right. Yeah.
Lanterns, Hal
This could be
Jordan and
John Stewart.
John Stewart. Yes,
Yeah. This could be interesting. I This could be the show that I was hoping Falcon and the Winter Soldier would be.
yes, that because it is being described as it's like a buddy cop Green Lantern show.
Yeah. And yeah, and James Gunn said it was going to be kind of like True Detective. Of course, I haven't watched True Detective, so
No,
I can't say anything about that. But yeah.
it's cool that they're giving it a shot, and I think TV might be the right way to do Green Lantern after that movie
Oh
with
yeah.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, that movie was an abomination.
So far we are a no opinion because it's a franchise I have no relationship to. It's probably just going to be another The Suicide Squad with a different team.
Yeah.
We have we have 2 notes of optimism, and we could not possibly give a care so far.
So yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's see here. Let me go ahead and pull up a nice little sticky note here.
Bad one. Okay.
Okay, so our ratings here are good, 2, bad, 1, triple question mark, 1.
One. All right.
All right. The Authority, based on the Wildstorm comic book, which, by the way, they made a point that unless they label it as Elseworlds, it's part of the main DC continuity.
Mhm.
Now, I have not personally read much of The Authority. I just kind of know of it.
I'm going to be honest. I'd never heard of it until the announcement. I watched I watched Midnight's Edge talking about it, and I think it was Script Doctor who said that this was a really dark series.
It kind of sounds a lot like The Boys, but with like less of a comedic bent.
Hmm.
And that's kind of possibly a problem if you're trying to set them up as Superman in the same world as them. Because I think if Superman existed in the same world as the Authority or the Boys, for that matter, it would go a lot like Superman versus the Elite, where they could not exist under the same sun, and one or the other of them will get wiped out.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think I'm going to call this a
uh,
triple
uh,
question mark, leaning
yeah,
on bad.
yeah, yeah. I'd say so. It could it could very easily. Yeah, like you're saying. I mean, if it's in the same universe, it could go very badly.
They could be setting up a Superman versus the Authority movie, which could be interesting.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
So not knowing much about the comics outside of reputation, I'm willing to suspend judgment on this one.
Hmm.
Unlike this one, Paradise Lost.
Mm, yeah.
Gunn didn't reveal too many details about the series, but he described it as Game of Thrones with Amazons.
Does that mean Game of Thrones as in the excessive nudity, or Game of Thrones as in
You
excessive
know they aren't
violence?
going to do anything that the male audience would enjoy.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. Yeah, Ninja Toe. What have they done? What have they done to Wonder Woman?
Let's be fair. I don't think Wonder Woman's even going to appear in this one.
No, it's a prequel. It's going to be when the Amazons are fighting they're fighting whoever the world of man, and then getting their their independence
Their
from them.
Constellation Island.
The Constellation Island, yeah, Themyscira.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think we can safely put this in the bad category.
yeah, yeah.
Next up, The Brave and the Bold, Batman with his son, Damian Wayne, as Robin.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, Damian isn't my favorite Robin. Actually, isn't even in my top 3 favorite Robins.
Yeah.
Actually, no, top 4 because I always forget about what's her name from The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, Carrie Kelly.
Yes. Why Damian Wayne? Well, because apparently James Gunn. So we've talked about how James Gunn is a big nerd before.
Hmm.
Apparently, he's a big nerd who has continued to read comic books, and he really liked this Grant Morrison run of Batman that introduced Damian Wayne, which he name dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, D. Ryan, Damien is a blight. Yeah, he's.
It, he is good if you pair him up with John Kent, Superman's son, as like a pair of prepubescent boys fighting crime together in like childish adventures.
Yeah.
Aside from that, Damien already got. God, they did a redo of the Trigon story from Teen Titans, and they made Damien the main character over
Gee.
Raven.
Uh, I,
You might argue that Raven was the main character, but they made it about Damien still.
yeah. Yeah, and Ninja Joe says they would need to rewrite Damien to be less an edgy kid. He's only good when he paired up with Nightwing.
Well, this being James Gunn, if anything, there'll be more edge. So I think we can call this bad.
Bad. Yeah.
Booster Gold.
Booster Gold. Now this is a TV show, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
this feels like it's in Gunn's wheelhouse of
mhm.
cultish things that the mainstream hasn't really heard of.
Yeah. My only exposure to Booster Gold was that one episode of Justice League Unlimited.
I've read a few comics of his, and yeah, he is a fun character. I was hearing Chris Pratt. I don't know if they were saying like Chris Pratt would be a good Booster Gold, or if he's actually signed on for this at all.
I think they're saying that he would be a good Booster Gold, and I would agree. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and the fact that he's already worked with James Gunn. I mean, he has a working relationship with him. I mean, that would
yeah.
make sense.
Basically, the if you are familiar with Booster Gold, he is like almost like the Daffy Duck of superheroes in the sense that he he wanted to be seen. Yeah, he had a inferiority complex in the future, so he stole some common technology from the 29th century or whatever he's from, and went back in time with the idea I can use this to be a superhero. This is a bit like if you or I said, "Well, I'm just an ordinary nobody. I know I'll steal a tank and a machine gun and go back in time and be a superhero in the Middle Ages."
Yeah, yeah,
So I think that with Gunn's predilections and skills set, he has the potential to do a very good Booster Gold. And unlike the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, it wouldn't lend itself to the overly gritty take that I don't like from his DC stuff I've seen so far.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Supergirl World of Tomorrow. Part of the other downside of having a nerd who's continued to read comic books. This is a comic book that came out last year by the infamous Tom King, the lover of
E-
deconstruction.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime you invoke the name Tom King, that's an automatic hell no in my book.
Automatic bad.
Yeah.
It's also the fact that this is a version of Supergirl who is extremely negative and doesn't feel like she has a place in the world with in the world of Superman, which it is too early to do that story when you have had one Superman movie in your universe. You
Mhm.
have to at least have a movie or TV show or something where Superman finds Supergirl, and then you can build up to her feeling like she's not needed anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Ninja Toes is Supergirl's going to suck. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only hope with this one is that it actually gets canceled. Like anything we
Mhm.
are talking about here, except for Superman Legacy, I think has a decent chance of development hell keeping it from
Mhm.
coming to screen.
Yeah.
So come on, development hell.
Okay,
But,
yes.
but
Yes.
let's,
Development hell.
or if you don't have development hell, go ahead and just cast Brie Larson, have her go on the circuit and talk about how Supergirl is stronger than Superman.
Oh yeah. They did that on the TV show.
What?
They had Supergirl be stronger than Superman and faster than Superman, and
Oh, that was technically a thing from the Batman Superman comics in the 2000s too, where she was technically
uh,
stronger than him,
oh, okay,
which doesn't make a
okay,
lot of sense if you think about it from like a physiology perspective, but as like a plot element to make her harder to control for Superman, it makes sense.
yeah. Well, and I guess it kind of makes sense for her to be faster because she's smaller.
Yeah, yeah. But
But
no, no, this is
yeah,
also like a misuse of the Supergirl character. It almost feels like they're going wildly out of their way to be different than the TV show version, who
yeah,
was largely a chipper, happy person.
yeah, yeah. Ninja Toast says we need to perform dark development rituals to cause this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the last one he dropped the name of was Swamp Thing. Um,
If it's Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, it could be good.
yep, might not be my thing, but it would be a good thing for other people.
Yeah,
A swamp thing, a swamp good thing, if you will. That
Swamp Good thing. Yeah.
uh, while Gunn hinted the film would be a bit totally different from other DCU projects, he promised it would still fit in the grander scheme of things. Um, I'm willing to call this a preliminary good, just
Hmm.
because they have a lot of strong material to draw from.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. And like I said, if they're going more in keeping with Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, I mean it could work. Um, you know, that's the one that yeah. Ninja Toast says Swamp Thing has a decent track record.
right? So it's kind of a funny thing. So we think we've talked before about how well, what was the guy who did the Wrath of Khan?
Nicholas Meyer.
Nicholas Meyer. I knew. Thanks. I knew I could rely on you for Star Trek knowledge.
Yeah,
When Nicholas Meyer was brought in to do Star Trek 2, he had never actually sat down and watched Star Trek before.
right.
And so having that outsider's perspective, he went through and when he hit the Khan episode, he's like, wait, why did this guy ever appear again? Let's do something about that.
Yeah, yeah, and when he watched it and when he was being described to him, he was like, oh, it's like Horatio Hornblower in space, and he could get behind it. So I mean, if you get somebody who can may not know anything about Swamp Thing, but once you throw a few comic books at him, and be like, oh, okay, I think I can figure this
So,
character out.
and see, that's where I was going with it. If we had if we had a major studio person who had never read a comic book before in his life, that we could roll the dice and possibly get that. Where I think that for most characters that you like, where you've read the comic books or seen the movies or watched the TV shows, like if I somehow met somebody who had never seen a Batman thing before, I could sit down, come up with 10 TV show episodes, a couple of movies, and probably a half dozen comic books to kind of get them up to speed. And if they
Hmm.
jive with it, it would work great. James Gunn is not that guy. James Gunn has been reading comic books possibly longer than we've been alive.
Yeah.
Actually, almost certainly longer than we've been alive.
Hmm.
And so he has something awful: tastes and opinions. And these tastes and opinions and what makes a good Superman or a good Batman or a good Creature Commando comic
Yeah.
are going to be different than ours just because he is not going by what the consensus is for what makes a good story for these characters. He is going off of how he sees the characters. At least that's how I'm seeing his choice of development track record.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I know there were a lot of people who were like, really somewhat happy that he got hired on. I've been very, very timid about it. I mean, I enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, although in my opinion, Volume 2 wasn't as good as Volume 1.
I enjoyed Volume 2, but I have to agree with that.
Yeah, and of course, the holiday special was funny. And of course, we still have the third Guardians to look forward to. I have not seen. I have not watched it. You've seen more of the Suicide Squad than I have, um, and I haven't watched Peacemaker, so I can't comment on those. But I mean, he seems to be able to. Uh, um, Going off of Guardians of the Galaxy, he can do a pretty good blend between humor and melodrama. Um, I mean, I remember when my mom when she first watched the first Guardians of the Galaxy, she said
Mhm.
she was crying at the beginning of the movie, like when she was seeing the opening scene of the movie, she was crying because when Peter Cole's mom passes away, like I mean he has that effect. I mean he can tell stories and everything, but whether or not he can tell a story with these characters.
Can he get out of his own way? Can he see his own blind spots?
Yeah.
Will Superman be peppered with pop culture references that rely on the actor's charisma to be funny?
Yeah.
Well, now, now I will say that one thing that's interesting when we go over it is, um, let's see here, was the okay. So let's kind of break this down. So we have our good, bad,
Yeah.
rating here. Let's go by what kind of media we're looking at here.
Okay.
Movie. So movie. Swamp Thing is going to be a movie.
Yeah.
Supergirl is going to be a
Girls a
movie.
movie.
Booster Gold is going to be a live action show.
Yeah.
Um, Brave and the Bold is going to be a movie.
Yeah.
Paradise Lost will be a live action show.
Show.
I think this is the one that has the greatest chance of dying in development hell, by the way.
Yeah, I do too.
The Authority will be a movie. Lanterns will be a TV show. Waller will
Uh,
be a TV show. Creature Commandos will be a
Live
animated
action
show.
or animated. Yeah.
Then Superman
Superman is a
Legacy is
movie.
going to be a movie. Okay. So if we ignore the TV, so if you take a look at these as kind of separate, we're going to have a Superman, Supergirl, Swamp Thing, Batman,
The Authority.
and the Authority movies. So we've got we've got really two with well-established characters, Batman and Superman.
Hmm.
We've got a spin-off character in Supergirl. We've got and we've got a cult classic in Swamp Thing, like literary comic book circles like that. And then we've
Yeah.
got the WTF Authority there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is this? Why haven't I ever heard of it? If you're not a comic book fan,
Yeah. And that last one, that might, and that could be, with James Gunn being such a big comic book fan, that could be a detriment to DCEU because he is so familiar with it.
right? Will he be able to will he be able to explain to somebody via the movie why they should like the Creature Commandos or why they should like the Authority?
Yeah. Yeah.
Truth,
And yeah. And,
truth be
and
told, when I heard the Authority was going to be in that mix, I thought, was Jim Lee in that meeting? Did Jim Lee say he wanted another check?
maybe. Although, with Lanterns, getting a TV show, more checks for Ethan Van Sciver.
You have to use anything he made.
Yeah, yeah. If they use like, yeah, if Jessica Cruz shows up or
Yep.
Atrocitus or yeah,
Yep. But it's like the movies seem like they are like too. Okay, people are going to go see a Batman or a Superman movie. The question is, how much are they going to see it?
yeah,
Supergirl seems like with this take they're doing on it, it might actually appeal to wine moms or like
yeah,
childless sad people in their 30s
yeah.
who actually seem to go for those types of characters.
Hmm.
Which is actually something I kind of forgot to mention in the Forspoken thing. I think that the reason so much writing is bad is because there are so many writers who spend all day on Twitter and they think that the way that like the jaded assholes people portray themselves as on Twitter is normal,
Yeah,
and they don't understand why people don't like those characters.
yeah.
But anyways, now as far as the TV show, we've got a Green Lantern show, we've got a Waller show, we've got a what else do we have here? We have Booster
Paradise
Gold.
Booster Gold and Paradise Lost.
That's kind of what I would say is kind of smart in terms of casting a wide net, because you've got like a range of tastes that you're covering there.
Yeah.
And then Creature Commandos, yeah, make it an animated movie because DC has a good pipeline for straight to video animated movies.
Hmm. And most of them are pretty good.
Yep. And you've got like a concept there that's so bizarre that test the waters first with an animated property.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it will make the way to live action.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, I think, and I know a lot of people were, kind of talking about like how him making this announcement, the way he did was a little odd, but I think he kind of had to do it because people have been chirping at him and about him for the last what has it been, like 2 or 3 months
yeah,
since he got this job, and he needed to put out something for people.
yes, people had to know what was actually happening.
Yeah.
Now, will any of this actually congeal? I can tell you that I remember seeing my grandfather used to be a investor in Marvel back during the early days of Spider-Man, and when they were
Mhm.
ramping up to the MCU,
Yeah.
and they were planning. I remember that Iron Fist movie that totally happened. Remember that Shang-Chi movie? Well, actually, Shang-Chi did eventually happen
Yeah.
20 years later. But remember that Iron Fist and that Luke Cage movie that totally happened, and
Yeah.
how there were multiple Elektra movies,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and how Man Thing totally came to theaters and was a huge success instead of
Yeah.
being dumped on Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah. And
So,
yeah. And
so like,
hey, Creators Outlet, good to see you.
hey, hey.
Yeah. So
But yeah, if you just look at it, there's a decent chance that a lot of these aren't going to happen, or they're going to be totally unrecognizable by the time you get there.
yeah.
Calm down, wait for it to be bad. I think we're at
Yes.
least going to get the best Superman movie in 30 years out of this.
I think so too. Yeah. It'll yeah, and yeah, I think a lot of yeah, a lot of this people kind of need to relax, and like I said, I think yeah, like you said, these are tentative. I think at bet some of them are, and you know who
By the way,
knows.
the reason you announce this well in advance to see what people actually want.
Hmm.
So actually, go ahead and complain about it. Don't be surprised if Paradise Lost keeps slipping down the schedule and never happens,
Hmm.
because I have not heard a single person say they were interested in this show in the least.
Yeah, 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 I don't know anybody who'd be interested in this TV show.
The Preacher Commandos is pretty decent. That's pretty much a sure thing because that's their first thing they're doing in this new
Hmm.
DCEU or DCU or whatever they're calling it. Superman, I would expect it to slip into the fall
Hmm.
of 2025.
Yeah, maybe closer to Christmas. Yeah.
Yep. Although they might not want to compete with Avatar. Ugh,
Oh, that's right.
that's a thing.
Yeah.
But Brave and the Bold, that could shift some. Like Damien, I think, has the most chance of not being in there if somebody goes, well, we don't want to skip past to the other Robins, and is Damien actually a popular character?
Yeah.
I think Booster Gold has a really good chance of actually happening because that's exactly the type of thing that a TV show is good for.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
Supergirl, I think, has a decent chance of not making it out just because somebody's going to go, wait, okay, I know that we want to cut Tom King a check for some reason, but uh, does it make sense to introduce this version of Supergirl with this story? Yeah.
I don't think so.
But again, we're the problem. We're nerds who have opinions. So,
Yeah.
and there'd be people like if we came up with our slate of DC movies, they'd be talking about how DOA we were.
True. Yeah.
Like there is a level at this point where the DC universe outside of Batman has kind of become synonymous with failure in the eyes of many people.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll just have to wait and see if that changes in the next couple of years.
Yes, indeed. But you know what doesn't ever change, Daniel?
What's that?
The need for people who like our channel to like, subscribe, and make comments on our video.